Hello everyone, you join me here on another beautiful sunny day here at the Road America racetrack here in Wisconsin. And today I want to make a unique video because I have some extra time between filming other vehicles, and that is all my likes and dislikes with the 2023 Hyundai Ioniq 6. Now, if you follow along on the channel, I've seen some of my other videos, you'll know I have made a very similar video on the Ioniq 5 when I had that vehicle for a week. Well, if you guys follow along on the channel recently, you'll know that I took the Ioniq 6 sitting behind me up here to Road America on my very first EV road trip. That is going to be an excellent video, so I highly recommend checking that out once it is published here on the channel. However, today in this video, I want to focus all the things I like, dislike, and just some of the nuances living with the Ioniq 6 for a short period of time. So you join me first here in the rear seat of the Ioniq 6 because this is one of the highlights or small benefits over that of the Ioniq 5 or some of the other eGMP platform vehicles. Since this vehicle is more sedan-like, you gain some rear legroom, although I will say you lose some rear headroom versus that of the Ioniq 5, which I believe I have mentioned in some of my other videos. But my first overall like with this vehicle is kind of multiples all in one. It's firstly very quiet on the interior. Part of that is due to just the fact that it is an electric vehicle, so they are inherently a little bit quieter, especially when you pair it with good sound dampening materials throughout the body structure and stuff like that. So this vehicle is extremely quiet on the interstate. No problems with noise intrusion, road noise, wind noise, anything like that. And especially when you turn up the stereo, it definitely drowns out the exterior ambient noises. So very quiet on the inside, very impressed with that. Another one of my likes that kind of goes hand in hand is the soft interior materials throughout the interior cabin. So much like that of the Ioniq 5, the SEL Unlimited use the H-Tex recycled eco-friendly materials on the seating surfaces and some of the door panels themselves. It's very soft, very plush, and colder conditions it stays very pliable, and that's one of the things I really do like about not only Hyundai vehicles in general, but specifically here about this Ioniq 6 Limited. Now, along with both being quiet and having nice interior materials, the suspension tuning is very good in this vehicle, and I think it's just a little bit better than that of the Ioniq 5. Even though this is, I think, just a tad stiffer than the Ioniq 5, this one rides very nicely. It is still very softly sprung, so when you're trying to drive it spiritedly around corners or anything like that, you definitely do feel some body roll, although the low center of gravity with the battery pack mounted in the floor certainly helps this vehicle, and as a whole I think it rides very nicely, although it is a little bit softly sprung. But for road trips, long distance driving, anything like that, this vehicle definitely suits the bill. And I think it also has a very good range number that typically when you want to stop, use the restroom, anything like that, you're about ready to charge up anyway. So all those variables combined, I think it makes for a very decent road car. So one of the other things I really enjoy about this vehicle is the packaging and the lighting setup. So if you've seen my likes and dislikes on the Ioniq 5, then you'll know that car comes standard with the multi-reflector LED headlamps, and then you have to now step up to the limited trim to get the projectors. Well, not the case on the Ioniq 6. The Ioniq 6 comes standard with the LED projector headlights, LED turn signals with the pixel integration for the daytime running lights, which are amber by the way and look very badass. And around the rest of the exterior of the vehicle, it's all LED lighting as well for the tail lamps, the backup lights, and the turn signal repeaters on the mirror. So I really do like the headlight setup and just the LED lighting setup in general here on the Ioniq 6, especially over that of its sister vehicle, the Ioniq 5. Now, similarly to that of the LED exterior and interior lighting that I just mentioned, another one that I really do like about the Ioniq 6 is it comes standard with the smart power trunk. So if you've ever had a vehicle, maybe an SUV, maybe a sedan with a power trunk, then you'll know just how useful this feature is. Now, a lot of the Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia vehicles do come standard with the smart trunk capability, which is essentially a spring-loaded trunk. So you walk up behind the vehicle, stand for about 3 seconds, and the trunk will spring open automatically. However, that is not the same as a power trunk. This one is a power trunk which uses a motor and some of the other mechanical aspects to physically open and close the trunk at a push of a button, whether inside the vehicle on the key fob or on the trunk button located right here. So this feature is actually standard across every Ioniq 6, which I think is fantastic and very useful in day-to-day life, given not only can you close the trunk from this button and all of the other buttons I just mentioned, but you can also lock the vehicle from this button. So say you're getting all your groceries out of the trunk itself, you grab the last bag, you have the key fob in your pocket already because it has standard proximity entry, and you just want to walk away and lock the vehicle. Well, you don't have to use the exterior handle on the door or the key fob itself. You can simply grab whatever you need, take it out of the vehicle, and press the lock button right here on the back of the vehicle. that will not only shut the trunk and lock the vehicle simultaneously, so you can just simply walk away and the vehicle is now locked and everything is secure inside. So yes, I understand a lot of people out there may think this is more of a gimmicky or maybe a luxurious feature that is not needed on a day-to-day vehicle, but personally, in terms of a sedan like this, I think this is a very useful feature and one that a lot of people should at least try out if you haven't ever experienced it. So now you join me here on the interior of the Ioniq 6, and I have a couple likes or things that I think would be very handy on a day-to-day basis on a vehicle that I would enjoy. Now, number one, this is shared with the Ioniq 5 as well, and that is the dual 12.3-inch screens for the infotainment system as well as the digital gauge cluster. Now, unfortunately, we know how Hyundai works now with their built-in navigation vehicles is that you only get wired Android Auto, wired Apple CarPlay. So this vehicle is no different, you only get that. But the overall technology, the screen size, the resolution, the amount of information that is displayed on the digital gauge cluster is extremely good. And I think one of the things that, again, I enjoyed using the most with this vehicle, very similar to that of the Ioniq 5 I had just a few months ago. And another thing I've really enjoyed here on the interior, or think I would use on a day-to-day basis if I were to drive this vehicle for a longer period of time, and that is the power sunroof. Now, if you've seen the Ioniq 5, that has a fixed panoramic sunroof glass on the limited trim. Now here with this limited version, you get a smaller piece of glass, but it not only opens like the shade, it also power retracts like a traditional sunroof. So if you want a little extra ventilation, simply press that button again. The sunroof will retract like a standard power sunroof. It is a little bit wider than them, but it lets in a lot of fresh air, a lot of sunlight, and to me, it makes the exterior design just look a little bit different and a little bit more unique. So pretty cool indeed, something I would enjoy on a day-to-day basis. And I guess one more small thing to wrap up the likes section before we get into the dislikes is over the Ioniq 5, they changed the steering wheel controls in this vehicle to make them more physical buttons. They're all separated, dedicated buttons, where in the Ioniq 5, they're more of a quadrant single button. So the button itself would rotate in the quadrant direction. But as a whole, I think they did definitely upgrade that functionality. And of course, you do get the pixel LED lights on the steering wheel airbag to give you a little bit information depending on whether you're charging. You have your drive modes linked to them as well. So definitely some nice functionality and upgraded tech inside of the 6 over the 5. But now let's get into the dislikes or things I might not like so much about this vehicle. So my first dislike here on the inside is the fact that they moved the driver assistance technology and cruise controls to the left side of the steering wheel, where formerly they've been on the right side with the Ioniq 5 and, like I said, older Hyundai models in general. Now, I'm not exactly sure why they made this design change, if it was something to do with the radio audio controls being closer to the infotainment screen and the cruise control stuff kind of using with your left hand. But nonetheless, I like it in the reversed aspect with the cruise control, driver assistance tech on the right side, and the audio multimedia here on the left, because I typically do drive with my left hand on the steering wheel, whether that be the interstate or just cruising down the road. So if I want to change the track to a song or anything like that, I could simply bump the little toggle here on the left side with my left hand, and that would skip the track on the infotainment or whatever I'm listening to. And I typically don't adjust the cruise control all that much while I'm driving down the road. Depending on how the traffic is, you just set the smart cruise control about one time or something, and that would be it for the road trip unless you need to pass or do anything like that. And speaking of the driver assistance technology, my second dislike is the fact that I got a constant keep hands on steering wheel while using Highway Drive Assist 2 inside of this vehicle. Now, I'm not exactly sure why that is. Sometimes I'd have my hand resting on the bottom of the steering wheel just like this, thinking it would apply enough pressure to keep the system happy, but that did not seem the case for the most part. I really had to kind of jiggle the steering wheel every now and then when the system message came up on the display cluster and kind of keep it happy by inputting force movements into the steering wheel rather than just keeping my hand rested on the steering wheel like I would prefer. So hopefully they can get a little bit better at this in the future. Heck, we may even see some hands-off systems down the road from Hyundai Kia. But nonetheless, that was something that kind of annoyed me while driving up here. It seemed to always give me keep hands on steering wheel every 30 seconds or less. So something that kind of bothered me a little bit, and hopefully something that they can improve with some programming and stuff over time. So my third dislike here is with the infotainment and radio system. So say you got something plugged in running Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and you're listening to a music streaming service and just want to skip to the next track. Well, you can, of course, use the steering wheel controls or the tune flap over here on the dashboard itself, But something that I've noticed with recent Hyundai vehicles, and here it occurs with the Ioniq 6 as well, is say you want to skip to the next track. Well, typically that would be up on the arrow in my opinion, or that should be the correct method, but that is not the case. It is actually down on this. So you have to hit down to skip to the next track, which just seems like a backwards compatibility issue. And I know if you have the radio screen that's built into the infotainment system itself, not streaming or anything like that. So say we pull up a media, it'll go down the list of favorites here on the left side. It works correctly. So something's just a little bit different with the actual software in the Android Auto or whatever it is. It seems backwards to me, where it should be like it is with the radio system, where up is up and down is down, or next is up and backwards is down. I don't know, something that just really bothers me, and something that I just thought was a little bit backwards. And speaking of the infotainment radio system, the Bose premium audio system in this vehicle is very good. However, it has a very similar issue to that of the Ioniq 5, which has the standard audio system that I did in my likes and dislikes video a few months ago. And that is the overall volume of the system doesn't get overly loud, and there are a ton of increments with the volume knob itself. So turning the knob, you'll see it has 75 different volume increments. Now these are very small, so it's great for fine-tuning the volume if you want. However, just to get the volume loud enough to actually hear it, you have to go well above 20, which wastes those lower thresholds in my opinion. And then also when you're using XM or even with Android Auto streaming Pandora and any other music service, I noticed that the stereo itself doesn't get overly loud in my opinion. Not as loud as some of the other vehicles I've heard with the upgraded or premium audio that has an external amplifier. So that's just another small gripe I have, I would say. It doesn't get overly loud. It depends on what's playing, but it gets sufficiently loud at least. It sounds good. The overall output is pretty good, but there's a little bit too many increments in my opinion, and the overall total output is a little bit low. So my next dislike here on the interior is the fact that they removed all of the window and lock and unlock controls from the front door panels and moved them into the center console. So this is where you'll find all of your window switches as well as the central lock and unlock button for the vehicle itself. So to me, I do not like centrally located controls. I have these lock and unlock centrally located in my personal vehicle, and anytime I want to lock or unlock the rear doors for whatever reason because they are still locked, I have to reach inside of the vehicle and it's up on the dashboard and press the button to unlock it. And that is very similar to that with the Ioniq 6 located right here. And similarly, I would rather have the window controls on the door panel themselves, because obviously I find myself having a habit of reaching over here to find them, and typically I just think it's a more ergonomic place to put them rather than having to shuffle your hands around and find the window switches and stuff over here. So I really think it is important to have the lock and unlocks on the two front door panels in my opinion. So say you need to unlock the rear doors, you simply open the door panel, press it very quickly on there rather than having to get inside the vehicle or reach over and find it here on the central location. And my next dislike continues on with the infotainment system itself, and that is the built-in EV route planner or charging stop, as well as the preconditioning system. Is fairly cumbersome to use in this navigation system. Now I know updates are rolling out over time, which hopefully will improve this, but as it sits, very similar to that of the Ioniq 5, it is a little bit cumbersome to use the built-in navigation system for preconditioning when needed and when the ambient temperatures are a little bit lower. And of course, the route planner itself, when you have a destination, is not always up to date, has the latest information, so that is a little bit harder to use as well. So typically with this EV road trip, I just stuck in Google Maps, planned out my charging stops ahead of time, set it to that destination, didn't need to precondition or anything like that, so that was not a worry of mine. But I would say it would be nice to have it a little bit more improved, very similar to some of the other competitors out there that have this down and have it really well oriented and laid out inside of their vehicles themselves. And my last dislike with the Ioniq 6 might come as a surprise to some of you, and that is the key fob itself. Now, if you've driven an Ioniq 6, own an Ioniq 6, or have seen interest or just been hands-on with one, then you'll know the key fob itself is something that Hyundai has never done before in their history. Although it is cool, it's a little bit of a gimmick in my opinion. So the way that they did it with the Ioniq 6 key fob is that if you turn it sideways, it displays the Hyundai logo, very similar to that found on the exterior or just the vehicles themselves. So you can kind of see the Hyundai logo right there. Normally you'll be using a key fob like this in a vertical portion, so that's why the button layouts or the prints on the buttons themselves are laid out like that. But It is kind of cool and gimmicky, although I will say the key fob itself is extremely plasticky, and it does not contain the physical metal key for the vehicle. In an emergency, say you need to unlock the driver door or wherever the other keyholes are on this vehicle, this comes as an external key on this key fob that you will need to carry around with you or place wherever you think is safe when needed. So it's not built into the proximity key fob like Hyundai vehicles of the past. So that is really a downfall in my opinion, because not only does the design and layout of this key fob just feel cheap, it's larger than it needs to be, I think, in my opinion. I put it side by side with my personal proximity key fob of the past and some of the newer ones, and it's actually physically larger, although it is lighter because it doesn't contain the metal key. So that's going to do it for all my likes and dislikes on the all-new 2023 Hyundai Ioniq 6. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and or found something helpful. If you did, please hit that like button below. It greatly helps out the channel in these videos. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of my likes, dislikes. If you happen to own one of these, let me know what your overall thoughts and opinions are, and if you have anything to add from the ones that I mentioned in this video, or if you think mine are minor, let me know that down in the comment section below. I know some of them are a little bit nitpicky or gripey, but I think some of them are a little bit more beneficial or a little bit or something to be aware of just because you use them on a day-to-day basis. So leave a comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Also, don't forget to check out the EV road trip that I did with this vehicle. I'm only halfway done as of filming of this video. I still have to make the return trip, and we'll have to stop and charge at least one time because we are a little bit less than 50% as I'm currently filming this video. So make sure to check that out. I'll have a card up in the corner once it goes live on the channel, and I think it is going to be very beneficial because, like I said, this is my first ever EV road trip, giving you guys a real world experience of how it is to drive an EV. But nonetheless, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, make sure to check out some other coverage I have here at Road America up in Wisconsin, and as always, hope to see you guys in the next one.